Salam to you, my dear friends. Alaikum salam. Salam, salam. I welcome you here. And indeed, as we gather in the spirit of love, I invite you to allow your heart to open, to feel the dreams, the hopes, the desire that you have for yourself and of your life. And I invite you to recognize where this comes from within you, inside of you and your heart. Allow yourself, if you can, to pause, breathe and feel, and welcome this part of you that is loving. This part of you that feels, this part that knows peace, and this part of self that truly welcomes the beginning of a new era, the beginning of a new time of awareness and consciousness. This is the time, my dear ones, that things that have been spoken of by many in this world and from the world of spirit is now underway. You've heard many prophecy, you've heard many speak, you've written and read many words, and indeed you've done your very best to understand this world in which you live. And now you are awakening more and more to what is truly needed now in your lives, for you personally, but also undeniably the world around you. So you cannot now ignore the conditions of life on your earth. You cannot easily ignore the conditions in your society. And you cannot ignore the way that you know it can be. This is a time of choice. And you may feel that there is very little you may do, that some things are insurmountable or inevitable. You might even look at history and conclude that things have been done for so long a particular way that this is just how it is. And it would be true to some degree that the journey of humanity does not change all that much over millennia. Human beings are human beings, and the needs you have, they don't change so much. Things, however, have become quite complex at this time. And you have challenges, a pace in life that is indeed faster than ever. And you have things that increase life and its pace. And you expect things to be very fast, to happen, to meet a need as soon as possible, to make a change as quickly, as fast as you can. Communications now, they move very, very fast. This is not news, of course. This is what is known. This is what you live and accept as normal in so many ways. And in fact, the push of a button is still not fast enough at times. But it is important to really feel amongst all of the beauty of this life, amongst the pure miracle that you live, that a great healing is now underway. A great healing of life. You are going to become aware more than at any other time your own direct influence upon the world around you. And you might wonder, how is this? You are just you living your life and not having a very direct impact. You care and you like to help. You want to make good and better choices. Therefore, this might be enough, or it may seem very little. I want to encourage you to realize that the healing now begins with you. And that in attending to the healing of yourself, you immediately create a different energy by your presence in this world. And the healing is really about making peace within you, creating calm within the self, between the heart and the mind, choosing to understand that once you are not in conflict with yourself, you will no longer be in conflict with others. You will abstain, you will stop, you will pause to use an energy in any form, action or words that might harm, that might cause a feeling of alarm or pain in others. It is, of course, that this internal conflict of self has been in very many ways orchestrated. Orchestrated because you've learned to measure yourselves upon external standards, measured alongside of each other, measured alongside of values and standards that keep you going fast, that cause you to really wobble and doubt yourself and wonder if you are enough. And it's really important to understand that those like myself, the great cry, the great refrain that we hear so often in human consciousness is, was that good enough? Did I do well? Am I enough? And this very question, this very doubt, has its basis on externals, not upon you. And you've learned to doubt and question, to measure yourself, to compete, to compare. So it is a time of repairing. It is a time of healing. It is a time of bringing peacefulness within your own relationship with your life, with your feelings, with your thoughts, with your energy and presence in this world. How can you be anything other than you? And if you are permitted to be just you, to the very best of your ability, using the very skills and talents, gifts that you have, that you've grown and developed, how can that be not enough? It is time to turn and look at yourselves, to begin this healing that allows you to come home. And come home to yourselves. To be loving, to be compassionate, to make peace with your fears, with your ambitions, with your striving, so that you might enjoy the world, you might enjoy each other more, that you might enjoy being you. You may enjoy being enough. This is a time of ceasing the violence of thoughts, feelings that cause conflict, battles inside of you. These acts that perpetrate and allow, give consent to unimaginable things. It is time, beloveds, to realize what you can begin to do. And it starts with the self-criticism, the critique inside of you. It's quite one thing to know that you'd like to grow and develop, learn to do things well, and realize that with practice, with engagement, you're going to do better. And all of a sudden it becomes easy, natural. And you enjoy it, and you do it again and again. You practice, you learn. And you experience more of yourself, more of your energy as you do so. It's quite one thing to engage in the striving to be as wonderfully yourself as you can. It's quite another to motivate yourself out of fear in comparison to others' expectation, or in your own measurement and comparison to another human being. It is completely futile. This causes an act of conflict, and at times an act of mental violence against yourself. And I know many would not think of it this way, would not even consider this process as contributing to the healing of the world in which you live. Many hope, pray, wait for a better life, a better future, for things to improve, for everyone to have what they need, because indeed there is enough. And everyone hopes someone else will do it. Everyone else hopes that they're better at making things happen, they have energy, confidence, they will be the one to make it happen. But truly, the greatest miracles and developments that occur in your world come from that awakened realization that says, this is what I can do. This is what I can initiate. This is what I can give. And this is what I know is needed. So this is coming back to trusting yourself, listening to yourself more than ever before. It's not a selfish thing. It's not a self-centered thing with no consideration for others. It's simply something that comes from a knowing that when you bring your care, your support, your thoughtfulness, when you use what you know you are aware of, wonderful things are possible. You know that a smile makes a difference. When you smile at another, you know that kind words, kind actions, kindness really heals. It removes all aggression, it removes all anxiety and fear, because it is a loving approach, an expression of love, to be kind. It incorporates awareness and feeling and insight and care, compassion, and a true desire to connect. You see, my dear hearts, this world, this life in which you live is all about connection. It's all about the connection with yourself, your body, connection with each other, connection with the earth, connection with animals, all creatures, connection with the atmosphere, the environment. And indeed, humanity is rather good at creating ways of connecting. You use words with meaning. You use music. You can create feeling. You can convey with images. You can make a play of it, act it out. You can show examples. You can share ideas that carry an energy, a feeling that you need. And by that connection, you fill up. And you are connected to yourself once again in an even greater way. This is healing. Let us consider for a moment connection with yourself. The willingness to listen to how you feel. To feel what is needed and to respond to that. To do all that you can to create the calm, to bring the peace, to cease that internal conflict. Of course, sometimes you're going to have a mind that has really worked very hard to know what's going on and what others think and what are they doing and what is popular and what works and what is needed. And it takes great courage to choose to just be your own energy and believe and trust that this is enough, that this is your contribution, that this is what is needed. So it is really important to practice that inner connection with self. And of course, to use things and like-minded people and environments to enhance and support this. Anything that lets you just be you and relax and release the must and the have to is truly valuable. So this healing time in your world now is all about truly knowing what you value. It is about knowing what truly matters and ensuring it is part of your life every day, that it colors your choices and decisions. Because when you have no conflict, No internal violence in your thoughts or feelings with self. No inner criticism, no pushing to do better. You suddenly become available to everything that is waiting to become part of you and your life. Everything you brought with you into this world. Everything that is lying in wait, dormant in your cells, to become part of your expression, your action, your contribution to life. The world can only heal. You can truly only move forward and progress away from acts of violence in your world through individual repair, individual healing. And it is not always easy or comfortable. And there are many, many reasons to seek to feel better, different, and avoid the pain and discomfort. But all this does is keep you in a state of conflict. And the side effects and consequences are lack of energy, lack of clarity, unable to make choices and decisions, and a sense of separation. So it's important to feel within yourself, within your heart right now, what you know you are. And to let your breath and your awareness connect you to this. There is nothing to apologize for. You are such a beautiful presence in this world. And when you are disconnected from yourself, from your body, from your soul, you become destructive. You seek to control. You seek an alternative version of what actually comes with you into this life. You seek an artificial form of what is already in abundance the moment you draw your first breath. You have an opportunity to grow and expand in this awareness by beginning with where it is needed most. You need it most. You need it most. And that one moment of deep acknowledgement of what you need can truly connect you to what matters. So much of your life experience is made up of the consequences of disconnection, the consequences of not really being who you are, not feeling that love inside, so much so that you'll fear you don't have it. But if you are loved, someone else can give it. Someone else can give you permission. Someone else will make it better. And of course, you seek to connect with others, not by giving, but by needing. And you just create conflict again with each other, inevitably. Instead of being a source of loving, calm connection, instead of giving each other permission to be yourself, you in turn feel the consequence and feel alone, anxious, unloved. It all begins with you. Yes, even when you've had a difficult childhood, even if circumstances were not of your choosing, I hear you. It is still you who gets to choose. This is why you have what is termed the free will, the ability to choose. And if you've not felt that connection, you will seek it with others, because that first connection, particularly as an infant, if it was not complete, not fulfilled in the way you needed, you won't have it with you. This is why mothering is important, feeling nurtured and loved is important. If this is interrupted in any way, if it is less than it was really needing to be, yes, I know, through no fault of anyone, it sets you off on a course of conflict. And yes, if you don't know how to connect with self, if you don't know how to be yourself and listen to yourself, you will seek yourself in others. You'll seek that permission, that acknowledgement, that reflection others give you, that validate who you are, that your love is good, that you are good, even that you look good. So again, it begins with you. This healing, this repair. I understand you may often feel that the healing is impossible. It may feel it's reliant on others to change or to agree and want to heal with you. It really doesn't. It truly does not. It begins with you. You can heal your life. You can heal the world in which you are living by deciding to do the one thing that costs you no effort or energy at all. Just you. This is the power you have. When you have yourself, you will then see others even more clearly. You will know and understand and have such care and compassion for their conflict, for their struggle, that you could not hurt them. You could not want to hurt them. But it is that forgetting that you have the answer for you. It is that forgetting that every moment of every day, your soul is speaking to you. That every moment of every day, your own guides, your own teachers are whispering to you, are wanting you to have what you need. And what you need most of all, more than anything else, is you. Life pulls you out, pulls you into engagement, creation, busyness, work, pulls you in so many ways. And yes, some of these things, these obstacles are not of your choosing. You have to come back to yourself and take care of it. Take care so that you may be you, so that you may give, so that you contribute to the healing. Human beings, or more particularly the human mind, is generally quite impatient, right? So you're often a little impatient, my friends, with what you feel needs to change in your world. And again, the change and the healing that needs to happen, in one sense will happen quickly, but to the mind perhaps not, is actually dependent upon the decisions you are making, the actions you are taking, the how you are expressing yourselves to be conscious, to be aware. If you all come together, you begin to feel the power of that shared consciousness. You felt it recently with the great wave of love and compassion that you have all contributed to. Your heart opened, you gave, you cared, and you acted on that love. You became a most wonderful expression to your entire world of an alternative response to the usual. So it is important to realize the power you have, that you were woken to very abruptly, that asked you to look again, to really feel the shock of that awakening, and then choose to be you in that moment. That awakening showed you the connection you have with each other. It showed you when others are in pain, you hurt. And it is getting more and more difficult, my friends, to turn away, to ignore, to pretend not to know. And more you will be confronted by things that are going to ask your attention. Now, some of these things will happen if you are not responding in such a way collectively that absolutely do the very same as the act of love recently. There are things that are going to need your decisions, your choices, your acts, your energy, your consciousness. And some of these things will ask your attention in a way of crisis, in a way of shock, if you are not acting in such a way that you can be available to the world, to each other, by caring for what is happening in here within you. Your world in many ways is in crisis. And you might decide, well, if I'm not in crisis, if I'm calm and there's no conflict or violence within my own heart, I am not in crisis. Of course. But from decades and centuries and millennia, your world has been created from chaos, from a world in deep conflict. And I want you to feel and contemplate my next words. You can heal your world because your world is you. And it might seem extraordinary and quite a stretch to imagine that in focusing to heal yourself, you are contributing to the healing change in very real, tangible ways. You have shown the world that you do not abide, nor tolerate, or even deeply permit acts of violent terror. You have shown what you do, what you know and believe by coming together. You will have many opportunities in the years ahead to show what you all feel about your world, your environment, the devastation occurring to other forms of life on your planet. Because in your tolerance or your ignorance of violence and conflict inside of yourself, you permit, even if you mentally acknowledge it, you permit, you condone, or you feel it is so separate that there's little you can do. And so you don't act, you don't do anything collectively to change it. There are many, many examples I might give you. But your way of life is fast coming to an end. And that will be alarmist for many, because you're all busy working to acquire, to be successful. And certainly those models will continue for a little, but they are not sustainable in terms of the material dream. They cost, not in dollars, not in monetary ways, they cost. They cost dearly your resources of life enjoyment. They cost dearly these things that make up success. So the values of how you can heal your world are really about beginning to value your life, the quality of that life, and the quality of life all around you. Because your quality of life cannot exist without the quality of life others have. It cannot happen in isolation, and it cannot happen at the cost of your world. In other words, your water, your oils that you use, the grasses, the soil. It cannot happen. So it's very important to realize and understand the choices you're making. Yes, I do know and I understand that you may feel limited in some of the choices that you have available. But you have such power of influence because you consume, because you exchange money and energy for things. And it's so much part of your life that you would do it without even contemplating it. But time is running out. This cannot continue, and it will not continue. Your world cannot sustain it. Your world has been engaged in acts of violence against each other, has been enacted in violence and conflict against your environment and against all creatures that inhabit it. And this is not a happy moment. This is not a happy thought. And when you let yourself feel it, be aware of it, it will cause you pain. It will hurt you. And that's only because you are being hurt. You are being hurt. So the next step in healing your world is paying attention to the wounds, to the hurt, to the pain. You suffer, you endure, and you survive. And always the healing happens here in yourself, here in your heart, in the recognition of your own unconscious, unaware contributions to it. And you would not know, because you are confronted by so much noise and so much color and so much invitation to believe that this is what life is, to consume. I'm not saying you cannot enjoy good things. For millennia, human enjoyment of good things has been one part of life. And indeed, few have enjoyed good things and many have gone without. And yet when you've gone without, you've had things that are rich and shared and vibrant and truly beautiful, that live on beyond the acquisitions, that live on beyond the temporal, that live within your heart and soul, that become part of you and endure for your own soul journey. So values are indeed in a process of change. And this is important. In this awakening period, it is truly becoming about the way you live, the way you are being and living as yourself in this world. And before you think about it, some things can seem ordinary, because that's what you learned as you grew. Until suddenly you look at it from another place of awareness and you would never do it, you would never touch it again. So it is important to realize the costs to you of disconnection, of conflict, forms of violence, the real costs on your happiness, on love. And all you have to do is be here, to know the difference, to feel and know what to do, to truly help. Communication is going to become the most valued form of love. Not communication as you've known it, and not communications of romantic love, although it can and of course will be included, but communication of self and soul, communication that connects you to each other. Not just to share information. That has been a diversion. It's been wonderful, but it's been a diversion. This is about communication, where you receive a feeling, where a wave of awareness is communicated. It's going to be so powerful. Some are already looking at it and beginning to consider how they do it. You could start it now. You could start it here, this very moment. A wave of communication which simply says, in your words and actions to others, you are enough. A great wave of acceptance that relieves every wounded, conflicted heart and mind of fear and anxiety. A wave of communication that colors everything you do and say. Waves that will take all the common forms you know and become something even more. Ironically, some of the new technology are going to illustrate this beautifully. Beautifully, because it's going to represent more accurately the energy than anything else. I want you to understand that you're going to heal this world by paying attention to how you feel when you connect, when you communicate, when information is passed and shared between you. Pay attention. Want to speak, my friend?
Raman, with you talking about sort of the effects we're having on the planet and the influence that we can have in healing ourselves, I used to worry a lot about, the bigger picture of all things, and
yes, of course,
through time focusing more on myself as we're talking about healing ourselves, etc. But as far as sort of practically, the environment, and what are the sort of things that we can, because sometimes it feels like a little bit too late. Like, what can we do? There's so much going on that we need to fix, but what are sort of the first steps or most important things we can do for our environment and such to help make a change that? Yeah.
All right. I like your question. Everything I've been saying, but I also want you to understand that the more you truly know and accept yourself, the more you're going to begin to identify the things that absolutely resonate with this feeling of self. Not things that you're wanting to find yourself in or boost yourself from, but truly things that speak to your heart and your soul. And they can only be felt. You might see and recognize, and things light up in your mind, but it's really about paying attention. Because what you're going to begin to do is influence the things you do and you choose so that your consciousness really knows the outcome, the consequence of your choice. Now, that will allow you to feel a very direct relationship, connection between you and others, or you and your environment. Now, what that can mean as an example is that you become even more conscious of the effect of plastics in your world, in your environment. And it means that you're going to know that the choices you make are not to consume plastic. But it's going to take it even further, because it will resonate. You will begin, of course, in that awareness to include knowing where the environment is being impacted, and not just in a broad, newsworthy sense, but in a very personal sense. And it will mean your relationship with self will examine what you have, what you own as plastic, and you will be even more conscious of what you do with it. You will be conscious not only of not wishing to contribute to further pollution, but you will be conscious of wanting to work with others to heal it, to recover, to repair it. This is in fact rather urgent, is that you are all needed. You are all called now into action to truly understand the direct connection you have, your choices, but your actions, to bring about some change. Now, I know that's not easy when your own lives can seem full and overwhelming. And you may feel that ceasing the conflict, the violence inside yourself, engaging with your own healing might really be all-consuming for a time. But the process of this increases your awareness to the choices you're making and whether or not they support your own healing, which in turn supports the healing of your world, because your world is you. You see, my friends, the things that are wrong with your world can only exist, can only be present because of what's not clear within humanity. So you can do much by ensuring, not in a pedantic, picky way, but in a way that says, the things I do, the things I choose in my life, they truly need now to resonate, to vibrate with this calm, this love, this intention within. And once you begin to engage in that healing, anything that does not will feel conflictual to you. It will not be a stretch to say it might feel a little violent to you, because your tolerance to atrocity, to violence, will in fact cease. So the effects of this are far-reaching. And if you take out, for instance, in your media, things that are violent, and again, I'm not being precious. If you take out the things that are violent, you won't have much left to see. But if you choose to cease engaging because it's an aberration to your heart, to your calm, to your peace, then you begin to no longer contribute to its presence. And this is where you can take the wave of love even further. When you're not fully connected to yourself, you will acknowledge the things of your world, of your life that is violent. And you will just tolerate it. You'll just accept it. It's not you, but it's others. And this is the film that is made, or this is the creation, this is the replication. You'll just feel it's out of your control. But by your acknowledgement and tolerance, your allowance of it, you continue to give it space. It continues to exist. When you no longer contribute to that, when you no longer choose it, there is no revenue, there is no way for it to become popular or profitable. And that means that these media cease to really function.
What you're saying, Raman, really is we're constantly voting. We're constantly voting
Yes.
for one thing or another.
Correct. A very good way to say it. You're giving your vote at all times. You might be saying, I'm not voting for that. I'm abstaining. But if you just abstain, you're still saying yes. So your world cannot heal if you don't completely disengage, disconnect from things you unconsciously allow to exist. In other words, you don't vote just to tolerate. It's not always a yes or no vote. Sometimes it's a vote that just says, all right, some people like that. That's their preference. This is their right. Sometimes you could say liberalism has gone a little far. When you bring things here to measure them here, then you get examples such as the outpouring of love and compassion in your city, in your country. And from there, if this wave of outpouring energy is to continue to benefit all people, it needs to become a continued decision inside of the hearts, minds, and souls of all of you.
Raman, on that, we've really lit New Zealand up.
Yes.
But New Zealand still participates in Five Eyes. We still collaborate with the war machine, Five Eyes Spy Agency.
Yes, indeed.
We still collaborate with the industrial war machine.
Indeed.
We still are involved in wars and acts of violence in countries that have never ever harmed New Zealand.
Correct.
So there's still, it's great what happens, beautiful, but it's kind of also exposing that there's a little bit of hypocrisy going on here, because as a country we've continued to agree to the engagement of a war.
Dear Had, it can, in appearances, be considered hypocrisy. But what I want you to understand is that this consciousness has awoken because of extreme crisis, an extreme act of violence. And that awakening now has the ability to continue inside of the self, the heart of every soul here in your nation and in others of the world who have watched and witnessed, all of you.
So it will have an influence on that.
Well, what it begins, because it's not the sole answer of itself, and you are now into the third week and things are beginning to settle to normality.
Mm-hmm.
However, the shift in consciousness that occurred now means that your ability to recognize care, compassion, is now this very moment starting to work on all of you individually, which is why I'm talking about it. And it then flows to have an influence on the choices and decisions you make. Now, most ordinary individuals, as you might call them, good citizens, have very little conscious awareness of the things you speak, unless and until they become aware of it. And you only become aware of it en masse, which it needs to have happen to really make change. It only happens en masse when enough of you are holding this place in yourselves. Because then, en masse, you begin to join that collective consciousness that really doesn't feel good about something you become aware of. Before that, you're busy listening to news bulletins, being aware of what is happening, but very preoccupied with your own existence, your own survival. And so that kind of controlling consciousness depends upon you feeling separate, struggling, feeling alone, unloved, in competition, seeking physical things and comfort, and generally just surviving and getting by. What has happened is the beginning. And I don't want to bring dire predictions because you don't need that. But what you need to understand is that as a nation, you've begun a very important and somewhat uncomfortable and painful self-examination. And these dialogues have begun among you all, and you're all now beginning to haul out every slight and every hurt you've all ever felt as a nation. And these are important conversations. They're not easy or comfortable. And some are going to sound racist, and some are going to sound self-righteous. Some are going to sound fearful. And the sane voices are going to be the ones that are connected to self. And those voices will come through. But you're going to have, in the next year or two, a number of occurrences that are going to pull you all together again to begin to examine your values and to begin to live what you have shown, what you've all stood up for the most part. In fact, there's only about 8% of you who absolutely felt unaffected. Now, that's not bad odds in your country. I will include some of what you term expatriates as well. They've become very much New Zealanders, wherever they are residing in your world. But it's very important to realize that this wave of consciousness, this wave of energy that has now begun, includes all of you, and it invites all of you to now register your wishes and your feelings, to begin to recognize acts of conflict and violence that you no longer want to participate in. Because one of the consequences of this act recently is that you now have been shocked into personal awareness of what this truly means. Don't go back to sleep.
Raman, a question from Justine online.
Yes, dear heart.
She's asking, so relative to the attack, she said, could you let her know what the dream she had the night before the Christchurch terror attack was asking of her?
My dear one, it is for you and several others in your country that you, as an empath, began to process a sense of prescience, and you began to process and prepare your heart. And it's really asked of you to listen to what you know, even when it doesn't make full sense, but to write it down so that when you awaken, you have these pieces of information. And sometimes they will only make sense after the fact, but it's going to happen more for you. And it's important you share it. It's important you talk about it. And that will mean, my dear, that you will realize at a much greater level you are sensing and feeling a turn of energy. And some of that, of course, won't be easy, but others of it will feel very, very good indeed. So it can feel very muddled or conflictual with both energies. But be at ease, be at peace, and really listen to yourself. You are guided in this. Stay open and support your energy. Indeed, sir.
Salam Raman.
Greetings, alaikum salam.
Is it on? Yeah. Today I was in the hospital and visited a young Turkish survivor.
Yes.
And his mother, and supported him a little bit. And he sounded very positive in a way, hopeful. And I was just struck with the enormity of what has happened. He showed, actually, it was almost accidentally, but I don't know whether it is. It never really is. He showed me a video that was taken by his own phone of him being shot and on the ground. And I didn't want to see it, but he showed me, so.
Yes.
So I'm sitting a little bit with that. But what I wanted to check with you all along, I felt that that this was by divine arrangement somehow. I don't know. And this is difficult to say, but those souls who have parted now, have they somehow signed up for this?
No.
No, okay.
Every one of you plans and expects to get up tomorrow, to continue your life with your hopes and your dreams. And no one puts their hand up and says, I'd like to be a terror attack victim.
Mm.
I'd like to know what that's like. No one does that. But what I can say to you is that in such events, those whose lives are ended brutally and violently are not wasted.
Mm.
Those who died, and even those whom survived, created such an energy of reverberation, vibration,
Mm.
that it leaves a signature,
Mm.
a wave of light and energy that indeed triggers and signals consciousness to witness the event.
Mm. Okay.
And it means that because of the sheer nature of this event, and in particular at a time when souls were very peaceful in their heart and in
Yes.
their prayers,
Mm.
they were open to divine energy.
Mm.
So the divine presence was very strong.
Yeah.
And in fact, had the one individual not been so programmed psychologically, he would really have faltered. Such was the energy and presence.
Wow.
Even once things began, he almost, in feeling the wave, almost faltered. The programming was so very strong, and the sounds, the actions practiced so much that all of that put him back into the programming. But it's very important to realize that humanly, you'll often try and work out how and why these things happen, and do souls somehow agree to be part of it. And again, I reassure you, these were souls simply attending their
Prayer.
prayers.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking that just, of course, you're totally right. I'm trying to make sense, and I'm trying to put it in context from a broader perspective, from an
Yes.
above position. And I heard that you said in December already that something is going to happen in March. So
Correct.
it must have been in the ether. It must have been
Yes.
somehow, kind of in gestation and
Being arranged. It was being arranged practically, so it wasn't just necessarily
Oh.
to interrupt Raman.
Indeed.
Sorry, yeah.
Raman was aware of where it was being arranged and where it was being arranged from.
Arranged by the gunmen or
And those behind him.
and those behind him. That's what you mean with the programming. Is that what you mean,
Correct,
Raman?
my
Yeah.
dearest.
Yeah.
This was a black ops, a psy-ops arrangement. This was not a soul actor.
Yeah.
This was not a soul actor prior, during, or after.
Okay.
So it's very important that you understand this is not just one mad man.
Mm.
Very important you understand this. And it's really important that you understand that even when it is known events are occurring, it is not always possible for divine law to stop it.
I know that, yes, I know. Yeah.
But it means that those who left their lives that day were absolutely surrounded in divine presence.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And lovingly welcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lovingly welcome.
Mm-hmm. Just wanted to just ask one more question, Raman, and that is the part our Prime Minister plays in all of it.
Yes.
The sentence that came into my heart, actually more than into my mind, while I attended all these rituals and remembrance services, and it was that I felt she was born for this moment. Born for this moment.
Indeed, dear heart. You have amongst you a representative of the future, of divine feminine energy, the mother. And she is representing the feeling way. And of course, she will be pulled apart and criticized, told she is representing oppression, etc. But her gestures were simply in respect. You have a leader who feels. You have a leader who is deeply affected and impacted. She is a part of this awakening also. And she will, from here forward, be more sensitive to events that you as a people awaken about, that you speak about. You have an opportunity as a nation for a period of time not to be pulled into conversations conflictually about racism, but to be pulled into conversations about who you want to be as people. Not who you are, not who you've been, but where you want your country to go now. And it's up to you. It's up to you to initiate this. It's up to you to participate in it, to really come together to be the one you feel you are on so many levels. And you will expect all the need to arise as well. You'll expect all the unmet need, all the conflict that exists in hearts and minds throughout your land. But your hearts are very much in the right place. Be comforted by your contributions, dear heart. Love always matters.
Raman, your reference to the Black Ops thing.
Yes.
I'm interested to know how we can carry an understanding, and perhaps you can outline that better, but how we can carry that understanding in a world that isn't aware of that. So for our own understanding of how it fits into the scheme of things, or how we're being controlled, and how we can follow the way that you're suggesting.
All right. It is important to understand that countries around the world are very deliberately provoked. The consciousness, the populations are very deliberately provoked to absolutely elicit reaction. Generally shocked, violent action. What you've done has been completely the opposite. In fact, this operation has not been a success in terms of the outcome hoped for and planned for. Correct. The operations that I refer to is to do with psychological programming of influential people. People who are influenced because of their own vulnerability and weakness. Psychological programming is used in warfare. It is used in the training of soldiers so that they will do unmentionable things, all while under the influences of narcotics and accompanied by erratic music. It is important to understand that you all have a rather romantic idea of war from all of the war stories you've watched and filmed, and the technological developments of now are very, very different, and you are not exposed very much to the realities of that. So psychological operations are really to stir up for political ends the populations, to bring about a purpose of further fear and control. And again, you've all stood up, and instead of fear, you've come forward with love. You've come forward with care and compassion. You've stood out on the world platform. You were underestimated, but you were always going to be bearers of light, way showers of the future in this land. The very vibration of your country seen from space glows. It's very important to understand. It is the nature geographically of your landmass. It's the nature of consciousness that you have. No, you are not perfect, but you are choosing something very good. So the nature of these operations mean that there are others involved with resources, others that are connected to governments deep, how do you say, underground, and they are truly working for other agendas. And it's really important to understand that you're not always going to know or see the full agenda, except on one level to keep great financial gains from war and control going, but also to continue to divide you, to keep you preoccupied so that you're not here, so that you're not at peace, so that you cannot peacefully coexist together. Because if you peacefully coexist, you refuse to continue to participate in a world in crises. You begin to find answers and solutions. You begin to cooperate, help each other, and advance. And it is most important that you do. Most important that you do. So you're not going to have accurate media reporting. You're not going to be told, unless someone can have their arm twisted, that there was more than one individual. You are not going to be told that your country was on high alert the week before this event. You're not going to be told a number of things, factual, when that goes against the policy of minimizing crises and distress. So it's very important to realize that you are awakening and you are choosing love, you're choosing a beautiful path, and it's important to keep it going. So you can truly heal yourselves, your world. Now you deserve that. You've had millennia of conflict. You've had world of conflict. And yet this is not really your nature. You're told your nature is aggression. You're told your nature is to fight. You're told that you're naturally suspicious, defensive. You're told that you're just going to survive, when the truth really is that your nature is love. Your true nature is the love. And this is why you get so excited and so thrilled when you see something beautiful happening in your world between others, or just simply the beauty of life all around you. Because you know that's real. You know that's what really is. Everything inside of you settles. Your blood pressure goes down. Your heartbeat is soft. You smile. Your body loses its tension. You fill up. You reconnect with what is true. That's why you love it. That's why you seek it. It's time to value this again. It's time to do everything you can to get there once again. And you start with you and how you live each and every day. That's what you do.
Raman,
Dear Had,
what will happen to the soul that was programmed?
at a certain point, a word will be spoken and he will fall apart.
On a soul level.
What will happen to this soul? He will receive loving care, the opportunity of healing and rehabilitation.
Right.
But humanly, in his mind, he will collapse.
It's very sad.
Indeed. He is considered equally expendable.
Was Hitler programmed in the same way? Is it the same sort of thing that occurred?
Not in the same way.
Not
No.
in the same way. Okay.
Not in the same way.
Okay. But he was a pawn.
Some will say he was a pawn, but I will say there's so very much more to that individual.
Okay. I'll leave it there.
It's quite a subject for an evening all by itself. Indeed.
Raman, can I ask a
Yes.
question about the flip side of this? I'm very aware that there's a lot of energy coming into this planet. Currently, there are a lot of extraterrestrials doing a lot of work on us.
Yes.
So there's a lot of support heading in the right direction.
Correct.
By countless millions of souls,
Yes.
not to mention countless millions of spaceships and the like. How does that marry with what you were saying before? Does that make it easier for us to transition through this ownership of self? How does that energy work alongside with the energy of what you've talked
All
about
right.
tonight?
I like your question. It is important to understand that as you all consciously make decisions to progress together, to begin this collective consciousness in how you live, every time you make a decision, an action that resonates with the self, you begin to connect with the collective vibration of consciousness. And every time you do that, it is enhanced by the vibrational energy being held for you by others from other dimensional energy.
So it's like it gives us a bit of a lift, a bit of a supportive.
It's like an attuning.
Right.
It's like this energy comes and it is within the law of attraction, but it's also that you begin to feel it because your own energy changes in your body, in your consciousness. Spontaneous feelings of well-being and healing begin to occur, but you also begin to feel an expanded sense of connection to divine presence and energy. And it is enhanced by the consciousness of those who are seeking to help at this time. This is the beginning of the long predicted golden age. But it doesn't begin with peace.
So it's like a group, it's like a very large group energy of uplift. Is that one way of
Well, it is, dear heart, because this is how consciousness exists in other dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
It's a vibration of collective presence. And as you all begin the singular and connected steps towards a presence of your own, when you've been divided and believing you are individuals separate,
Mm-hmm.
you begin to experience the benefit of this connectivity, and that allows you to experience the connectivity of divine reality
Right.
and all those who inhabit such a consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's held for you, it's projected for you. And if you are attuning to it, if you're open to it, if you're listening to your heart, listening to your soul, you may even feel it and experience it.
Yes. And I have done.
Indeed you have.
And so basically what you're saying is what you've just described will gather momentum. More of us will pick up on that energy. More of us will feel it, because
Yes.
there's a huge tsunami of this energy that is potentially uplifting those of us who want to connect with it.
Correct.
Right.
And once enough of you have connected with it, something else will happen.
Oh, right.
And until then, you are not really ready on your planet so much. To use a relatively pop term, you would all freak out.
Right.
But if you wish to know the reality of extraterrestrial consciousness, as you tune to it, as you are more open and receptive to it, you will begin to experience it.
Right.
That is the vibration that will bring this reality. But you have to come of age first, in a sense that you have to grow up and begin to act like members of the galaxy, in that sense.
So my experience of that so far is that it's little shifts. For example,
Yes.
I no longer feel the separateness as much as I do the connectedness.
Yes.
So those little shifts, that's what you're talking, those little shifts
Correct.
towards fourth and fifth dimensional energy,
Yes.
that's the sort of thing.
My dear one, you are going to so love the next decade.
That's good. That is a good sign. I'm going to be around for it. That's really good news.
Very happy to hear that.
Reassuring for my wife.
I believe there's an energetic slap.
Yeah, possibly coming my way.
Not violent at all.
No.
Is there a threshold? Is there, you say, in order for enough of us to feel this collectively, to invite these sorts of shifts that you talk about,
Yes.
is there a certain threshold,
Yes,
I guess, to be
course.
logically like a percentage
Yes,
of us?
of course. As we've discussed for some time all together, the Great Awakening reached recently, and because of this event worldwide, 63.9%.
Nice.
So it is important to realize that what this truly now means is that once you know, you cannot unknow. And once you choose, you miss it if you leave it. So there's a drawback again and again into your heart. And into your heart is the way to lift yourself, free yourself from, if you like, the blinkers of human awareness, to step into a different frequency of self and become more aware interdimensionally, so that you are ready to accept the reality of those not of your planet. Now, they're not just going to drop out of the sky, they're just going to start at first to reveal themselves from within among you. So that will be the first step. And then, of course, there may be presence in your sky even more visible, although some countries are already experiencing some of this. But they're not connected to your Western media, so you're not going to hear much about it. But it's very important to realize that when you truly are ready, you will be welcomed into the galactic family. And it will come at a very important, somewhat poignant moment globally.
That would be telling.
Well done.
He's not allowed to tell. This might be a bit of a sci-fi reference, but I've watched a lot of Stargate SG-1, and you've mentioned that there's a lot of parallels, truth in there. Would it? Yeah, I don't know if you'll get this one, but there's a part where
He joins in with Yasmeen and I watching things occasionally. We're not big Stargate fans, so
okay,
I'm going to do some looking through the references.
there's a part where a representative of Earth is welcomed to the Asgard, which are like a benevolent grey, and the humanity is welcomed as, after a long time, the fifth race.
Indeed.
Is that a similar thing that will happen when we're ready?
What you will find is that you are, in one sense, being programmed in preparation. Truths are put into so-called entertainment. But don't take it all literally.
Yeah.
The reality will blow your mind. And in fact, you'll be much more globally ready to embrace the idea of alien life than you were going to angelic life. It might seem rather ironic. But from that moment on, most of humanity will start to shift in consciousness and begin to embrace the understanding that you are not only not truly alone, but that indeed there is more to you than the mortal body. So this will be a revelation and a true freeing of the consciousness you inhabit. But you have to begin to move out of the old consciousness collectively, so it's up to all of you together, before this can occur. And it can occur within the next decade. But if you're particularly slow, you may find that it's either forced upon you or it's a little delayed. You get to choose.
But they are already here, aren't they? It's
Of
just that
course.
we are programmed not to see them.
Correct.
And, yeah.
Well, again, if you are afraid, you are not in your heart.
Yeah.
If you have love and peace within yourself, what begins to happen is a greater acceptance of all that is. Fear simply causes conflict and keeps you separate, keeps you alone. It keeps you in the illusion that you are not connected. Some like that idea. They like the idea that they are on a very personal, individual race to succeed spiritually. quite a competition.
So-
But truly, if one of you succeeds, this sends out a ripple to encourage all of you to succeed. You are not separate. You only have to consider how easily influenced you are by each other.
Raman,
Dear heart.
just a couple of questions then. What is the percentage of the woken up New Zealanders now, given this event?
My dear heart, it is at a very beautiful 71%.
What was it before?
Quite a bit less.
Well, it's quite a bit less.
Quite a bit less. It was growing, but it was sitting around 38. It wasn't very high. Indeed. You are really quite remarkable. You have no idea what you've done to the rest of the consciousness around your globe. You have no idea. The message you've sent, the stimulus in the hearts and souls of others.
The energy
You
behind
have very little comprehension of that.
I was just going to say the energy behind all that's occurring must be really devastating. That this has occurred, that as a result of our response, that it's had such a positive impact on consciousness.
Yes, yes, indeed. My beloved was most eager to ask me if the guards had told one individual that he had failed yet,
Right.
had explained exactly what you had all done. They absolutely could not wait to tell, and have continued to let him know.
Will the telling of, you said there would be one word that would unravel him.
Yes,
Will that be quite deliberate?
yes,
Right.
yes, indeed.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Janet.
So,
I mean, sorry. Sorry.
so my other question then was about the effect that this has on our children
Yes,
as well, because there was the climate march that was happening at the same time, and then
Yes.
also children kept in lockdown, and I'm aware of children that have watched the thing that was on Facebook, so a bit of a
Yes.
mix in there for our
Yes.
children.
yes.
Yeah.
Quite an awakening. And for some, they will respond clear and sure, knowing this is why they have been here at this time. For others, their own personal sense of powerlessness in their own lives will stimulate, of course, distress and need for security. Some will suffer some post-traumatic stress because it comes atop of earthquakes, and for others, atop fire. So it is important to understand that there will be some strength emerge, and for others, reality versus a game has brought home a very real lesson. And for some, that has been important. They will, of course, need careful supervision and support. But these things cannot be unseen. When you have a media that reveals horror before you, things that you would only see if you went to battle yourself, it is important to realize this does stay in the consciousness, but you become inured to it. You have games that you play to kill each other, to succeed at a game of war. So much programming occurs in your culture to accept such things. And if you accept such things, then you will feel indifferent to the suffering of each other, and you will permit things to occur to each other and your planet because you separate yourself from it. So this is not an easy point for those who engage in such energy, but it is important that this occurs because there's going to be what I'm going to call a purge in consciousness. And the purge in consciousness is going to bring about a very much needed change in how you respond to help those who need help. And it comes about in the most distressing ways, but it connects itself to the great mental, emotional crises you already have. In some ways, yes. In some ways, inevitably. So it requires you all to consider that the outpouring of love and grief for such an event is also worthy in how you care for each other, no matter what part of life you exist in. It's time, my dear hearts, for a revolution. It's time for change. And it's time for you. It's time for you. It is possible, and it is now underway. It has begun. It has begun. If you can consider it a form of healing, and if you can truly acknowledge that you want to absolutely give up all forms of violence, even those you were unconscious of accepting, if you're willing to discover what these things are, you will transform yourself and therefore your world. It happens because of you. And you are off to a good start, my friends. And there is so much love and support to guide and assist you. So in one sense that it has started with those who are marginalized and separate, different in many, many ways, is in fact a very good example, and in one sense a very good test for your consciousness. So you can now begin to feel what you are made of. And you can now, through it, begin to feel the reality of what must continue to grow.
Raman, we'll need to wind things up shortly.
Indeed.
But I want to ask, is anyone who's new here tonight who would like to ask a question, who hasn't had a chance to? Here's an opportunity to, if you feel you'd like to. You're good? All right. Raman, I've got two questions. One is, as you know, our dear friends, Andre and Bruna, have been living with us for the past number of weeks.
Indeed.
And they've been, in a sense, living in one of your homes, and they're about to go and move into another one of your homes. I'm interested to know that it's been an extremely easy connection, and it's been very natural. Is the connection historic, or is it simply the open-heartedness that is an example of how things can be in the future?
It is indeed in one part historic, but the other is simply the path of heart chosen for this life.
For both these
Indeed,
dear souls.
so.
And the historic part, what's the connection?
Well, the connection is another lifetime.
Of course. does it have to be that cryptic?
It is in truth you are family.
Oh, that's beautiful. So we're going to find out later. Is that what you're going to leave it at? That's nice to
For
know.
now, it will reveal itself.
Oh, wonderful.
It will reveal.
Okay, thank you, Raman. The other thing too is that, as you know, in this process of changes that are happening in our life, there's a possible opportunity
Yes.
for something on the hill. Tonight I was seeing how, in a way, there's perhaps one of the reasons why we're being guided in that direction is because it can act as a kind of an anchor point, another light anchor point, a bit like what this building's been as well.
Yes.
Is that one of the reasons why it's been potentially put forward to us as an option?
It is one, simply because, like this building, once it is used in a ritualistic way, it always retains that original intention.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a very powerful energy.
So it's
a powerful conductor.
So it would be suitable for, in a sense, us to carry on doing what our work.
The energy would be,
right.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. That's all I need to know.
All right.
Thank you, Raman. Thank you very much. An amazing night.
My dear hearts, as I depart, I invite you to feel the prayer you hold in your heart for your life, for your world, and all whom inhabit it. Your world is changing very rapidly, in very real and tangible ways, faster than you can perhaps, in fact, imagine. So choose this path willingly and lovingly, and your journey will be a little more gentle, a little easier. It is always my pleasure to welcome you, to gather here with you, to walk with you. May love continue to be your guide. Salam alaikum kudofis.